Behind the Shades.
I'm Yeve Chitiga, and I am a mom. I'm a wife. I'm an author. I'm an attorney. I'm a public speaker. I'm a coach. I wear many hats. And I am originally from Zimbabwe, where I was born and raised, and emigrated to the US when I was 16. And I have been here ever since for more than half of my life at this point. And having had the experience of being an immigrant to this country, working in corporate, I have a lot to share around imposter syndrome and what it means showing up as a Black woman in those settings. So I'm excited to dive in deeper with you.
Perfect, perfect. You mentioned that your mother, correct?
Yeah.
So one thing I always find interesting about parents is that, as you mentioned, they wear many hats. You were Yeve before you became a mother, and now you're Yeve as a mother. Is there some differences that you have noticed within yourself as you navigate, as you maybe reflect on both journeys?
No, absolutely. My daughter is 4, and I can tell you that since having her, I have definitely become more outspoken. And what I mean by that is because I have to advocate for her, I in turn am finding myself advocating for myself as well, in a way that I didn't do before I was a mom. And that is a welcome change for sure, because I think we all need to be equipped and empowered to speak our truth. And when you're a parent, when you're a mom, you recognize that your child only has you to speak up for them, whether it's at the doctor's asking, for them to investigate something, or whether it's at school or whatever the case may be. And so that's definitely a huge change that I've noticed. Another one, which my um, non-parent friends can attest to, is unfortunately now I'm flaky. I cancel a lot. And that's because being a mom is unpredictable. And it's like if my kid is sick, that grounds me. I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything, right? And so my life is very much dictated by how my child is doing. If my child is well, then we're out and about. And if she's not, we're not. And so my friends who don't have kids have had to kind of adjust to that. And so, I say that jokingly, but really, I think the difference is that, now you are thinking about not just yourself, but there's another little human that you're thinking about, and that impacts the places you go and when you go to them, the things you're involved in, the things that you care about, the things you spend money on, the things you watch, listen to, because there's a little one who is literally watching your every move. And my husband can attest that my daughter is like a little mini me. If I say something, she's going to repeat it. And so that is a really heavy kind of burden sometimes to be like, wow, I have to be on my A game. And sometimes I'm not, and that's okay too, because she needs to know that perfection doesn't exist. And her mom is a flawed human, and that's okay. So definitely have learned a lot since becoming a mom. Yeah.
And for all the parents out there, her child is 4, but she probably has about another 21 years of her taking care of her child. So sometimes she won't be able to hang out on girls' night or couples' night or things like that. She still has to make sure that her child is taken care of. And I love that the perspective that you put into that, because when children are born, I don't have any children, but I've been around people who have children, especially when they're very young, and I've coached men and women who have kids. And you're absolutely right when we say that, or when you say, sorry, that you are their first source of protection. You're the first line of defense. You need to advocate on their behalf, either actually saying something like the doctor's appointments and things like that. Also, the things that you don't say, that they pick up on, the energy, the vibes, right?
Mm.
That plays a part in how we advocate for them as well. And I think um sometimes that may get lost. You know, they're 18 years old, get out of my house. It's my time now. No, not necessarily. Your kids will always be your
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
And when you highlighted imposter syndrome, let's speak about that because I know there's sometimes that it can be people, I guess, look at it as more so in the job, but imposter syndrome can impact you in so many different areas of life. So let's speak to that.
Yeah. So I can talk about it because I think, we will get into the corporate setting, but I can definitely talk about it outside of the job. Let's stick to parenting, and then I'll pivot and talk about something else, another sphere. So in parenting, because there is no manual, like you literally are walking around trying to figure it out as you go. And I think imposter syndrome can creep in because you might look at other people and say, wow, that person has more kids than me, or, they are always put together, even though they have kids, or, they seem to just be living the life. They've got so much money, they've got the job, their kids are thriving. Like there's a lot of room for you to feel insecure as a parent. And I think it is very easy. In fact, you probably suffer from imposter syndrome more as a parent than when you're not, at least for me, right? Like, you don't know whether you're doing a good job or not. You actually don't know. And you only get that validation from other people. And that includes your own kids, that includes family members, teachers, etc. Right? But otherwise, you actually don't have a measure. At least I don't. And it's not until my child does something. So, we are a Christian household and we've been teaching her to pray since she was a baby. And the only way that I know that she is getting those lessons is when she prays. And I'm like, wow, you're doing so well. Like you actually get what it means and you pray and you're thankful and all of that. Right. So that's what I mean when I say you don't know whether you're doing a good job until someone else validates that for you. I also think that society and especially like media will have you out here thinking that in order to be a good parent, you have to be doing the most. You have to be getting your kids the latest things, the latest toys. You have to be feeding them extra healthy food at all times. They need to be reading by the age of 1. They need to be doing all of these things, right? And that's just false. And I think with more experience and from talking to other people and talking to other parents, you realize, first of all, nobody has this thing figured out. We're all scrambling and figuring out as we go and fumbling, really. And two, your kid just needs you as you are. You are their parent, and that is for a reason. And you're not perfect, and that's okay. And you're not going to have all these things perfectly lined up, and that's okay too. And your child is still going to be fine. If you look at your own journey, with your parents, it's like my parents were not perfect, but I turned out okay. You know what I mean? So that'll be the same thing for our kids. And yes, they will need therapy because we all do. And it's not a reflection on you doing a bad job as a parent. And so I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome because of society and just because parenting is hard. I will tell you another area of life where I have faced heavy imposter syndrome, and that is in my journey as an author. So I'm a published author. I wrote a children's book. I never went to school for this. I'd never studied it. I, am maybe the last person who should have written a book, but I did. And I did a language book. So as I mentioned, I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I did a language book on 2 of the primary languages in Zimbabwe, one of which I don't speak. I don't speak the other language that I wrote a book in. I'm learning it because my husband speaks it and because we're teaching our daughter. But that right there was a big moment of, am I equipped to write this book? I don't even speak the other language. How can I write a book about it and teach people this language, right? How can I even write a book, period? Who am I to write a book? What qualifies me to write a book? And those thoughts definitely entered my mind. And sometimes they still do when people are like, whoa, you wrote a book. I'm like, yeah, I did. I kind of shy away a little bit because I'm like, don't ask me anything, too crazy because I didn't go to school for this, right? And so again, there it's really the insecurities of not feeling adequate enough, right? And I think that's the root of imposter syndrome, right? You think that you are not meant to be wherever you are. You don't have the qualifications, or you're not qualified enough. And so listen, I battle and deal with imposter syndrome in all spheres of life. And I think we all do, right? And that's why I think I'm very, very well equipped to talk about it with you and the audience today.
On the parental front, I will absolutely agree because it's one of those situations where there isn't a manual, right? You can't go to your, well, you and I are probably old enough to remember libraries when we actually get our library card and swipe it and take out the book, right? But we're at the point now where it's like, I want to be a mother, I want to be a father. Where am I gonna? What is my point of reference?
Yeah.
Many of us will go to our parents, right? What did I like about my childhood? What didn't I like? Let me take the best aspects of that. But you're absolutely right. It's just something that you have to say, okay, I believe this is a journey that is essential to me. Some people, it's inside them. Some people, they don't have it. But when you get on that journey, you're like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm doing the best that I can because there's someone else who, for the most part, is very vulnerable that relies on me for their food, for their diaper change, for their guidance through life. This is, if there's ever an opportunity to grow up, it's when you become a parent.
Yeah.
So when you mention imposter syndrome, I think that's where maybe it gets neglected because we always think about, well, if I change my job, am I really qualified enough? But I think a lot of people have had the conversation within themselves. Anytime I change something, there's going to be a sense of vulnerability or insecurity because it's unknown,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you've mentioned the areas that you've experienced it in, are there certain behaviors maybe that you took out and said, okay, this really worked for me to help me overcome it?
Absolutely. So here I would love to talk a little bit about my journey in corporate America. So um, I am a lawyer, but before that, I worked in banking. And I was often the only woman, only Black person, the youngest, right? And that really makes you feel like the spotlight is on you. And it makes you feel like, what am I doing here with all these people with so much more experience? And now as an attorney here in the US, the profession of law is one that is majority white male. And so, as a woman, a Black woman, an African immigrant, right? All of these things, it's like, again, I'm in that same position of being the only often. And so, one of the things that I have done over the years and that really helps me, especially when I made my most recent transition from working at a law firm to working in-house for a technology company, is taking stock of a couple of things. The very first one is taking stock of who I am and where I've come from. And what do I mean by that? I mean, looking at the people who paved the way for me to be here. And I mean that specifically in my family. So my grandfather studied to become a lawyer, but he couldn't finish because of apartheid laws in Zimbabwe, which were racist laws that said, if you are Black, you cannot be a lawyer. And so he literally started and had to stop. And then he changed and started doing nursing because that was acceptable for a Black man. And I was the first person in my family to go to law school and to complete and get a law degree. I'm not the last. There's several who've come after me, my cousins and things like that. And so for me, looking at what my grandfather had to sacrifice, right? Because his dream had to be deferred and I was able to fulfill that dream, right? And so looking at that and just saying, look, I deserve to be here. My granddad didn't go through all that for me to just like not fulfill my dreams, right? That was a catalyst for me. And quite frankly, looking at all the people in this country who had to experience discrimination and racism and everything for me to be a lawyer in this country, all the Black amazing lawyers who came before me. So I had to really have a moment of reflection and a moment of like, whoa, who am I? And doing that has allowed me to tap into, I think, a deeper part of myself and really understand that me being here is bigger than me. because I am also doing what my grandfather did for someone else. I am paving the way for someone else to see that, look, a Black woman in tech as a lawyer, like that is not, she's not a unicorn, right? Like there will be a time when that won't be so strange, right? And so taking stock of who I am, that's number one. Number two is taking stock of the rooms that I'm in. So whether it's the boardroom, whether it's a meeting, I'm looking around and realizing from talking to people that they're also feeling this fear, this imposter syndrome. It's not just me, right? And they're just able to play it up a little bit better and act better, right? But like that has really helped me like understand that, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't unique to me. Everybody in this room is kind of feeling the same way. And they are wondering, well, is someone going to find me out and really discover that I shouldn't be here? Like we're all going through that. We're all human and we all have that for various reasons. And I found that out from talking to people. I found that out when I was in law school with my classmates who I thought were like killing it. And then I'd talk to them and they'd be like, oh my gosh, no, like I'm so afraid to do blah, 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 or to raise my hand because of, XYZ. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? And I've found that ever since I've started talking more to people. And, with this remote world, I work for a technology company that's remote, and talking to people and having real conversations with people. And the number one thing I heard when I first started this job was people saying, everyone here is so smart and I feel like I don't belong. And that's when it clicked, like, wait a minute, we're all going through this. We're all grappling with this, right? Especially when you work at a technology company where it's like fast-paced, innovative. We're doing things that maybe haven't been done before. And so we're all entering territory that we've never been in before. And so it makes sense, right, that people are questioning their capabilities because it's like an all new area for all of us. So that's the second thing, taking stock of, the people that are in the room. And the last thing is, the combination of those two, but really understanding that my voice needs to be heard. My voice and my perspective deserves to be shared. And I am doing myself and others a disservice when I am silent because of fear. I have to speak up and give my perspective and say, well, actually, what about this? Have we thought about that? Because my experiences and who I am are unique to me, and they are the reason why I'm in this particular room that I'm in, right? That the reason why I'm in the boardroom. I deserve to be there. Somebody decided I needed to be there. And I need to hold true to that and speak up and use my voice and use the power that I have being in that space. And I think those three things allow me to show up more authentically and to show up more confidently. And I'm not saying I have zero imposter syndrome. I'm saying that I have learned to kind of do that as a way to prepare myself, especially if I'm like in a place where I need to, do a presentation in front of like the executive leadership or whatever it is, right? I have to really reflect and kind of like take all of those things in. And that's my 3-step method. Take stock of who you are, who's in the room, and speak up and own your voice. That's what I do.
And I wonder how for you, because I'm trying to like live through you now, right? Because you put it so well and it sounded so beautiful that your grandfather had this dream and his granddaughter is fulfilling it in a way. And now the door is wide open. As you mentioned, you have other family members that's doing this. So you have from the top down different incarnations of this dream. And now the whole family, it's like when you go to, at least for me, when you go to like family gatherings or family barbecue and you look at the grandmother, right? And you said from this one person, she created the parents, and then from the parents of all these other children, and you can tie 20, 30, 40 people to this one person, this one woman, this one man. So from your grandfather's dream, you have your cousins, you have all these family members, but it doesn't stop there. Look at all the people that you're positively impacted, because you have to include that and roll them up to him. So when you mention all of that, and then you want to be aware of who's in the room, you want to be aware of all these things. How does that make you feel knowing that you can look at your grandfather, or you can have this thought and be like, wow, from my grandfather to me to everyone that's out there in the world, we are positively impacting. How does that feel for you?
Oh, well, I think you put it so eloquently and you put it so beautifully. And, you know, I am so humbled, honestly, by just where I am. And by no means am I like done with, what I want to do in life, but I'm so humbled just to like be in the position that I'm in, especially being a lawyer in America as an immigrant. It's like I really shouldn't be here. But I think that's the only thing that I can say. I feel humbled, and I think it's a driving force because my grandfather is not here anymore, and he never got to see me go to law school. He never got to know that that's what I did. But I know that he, is smiling down and is proud. And so it's a driving force for me. And it's actually motivation for me. In the last couple of years, have been really digging deep into this concept of legacy. And that's exactly what you described, right? That one person then has these 50 descendants who are doing all these things. In the case of my grandfather, it's like you had a dream to be a lawyer, you couldn't do it, and now like 5 people in the family are doing it. And that's just now. Of course, there'll be way more, even after we're gone. And so this concept of legacy really is something that I have been digging deep into and thinking about, what do I want my legacy to be? And I'm still young, right? Like we're young, but you still think about these things, especially as see your parents get older, as you have kids, and as you look at the world around. And so it's a driving force for me to be like, I want my great great grandkids, right, to be like, wow, it's because she did XYZ that we are now doing XYZ or not doing whatever it is, right? Because legacy counts both ways, right? It's like, and we're veering off a little bit, but let me go deep. It's Sunday. It goes both ways. It is both the creation and the birth of a dream, but it's also the end to certain things that are negative, right? It goes both ways with legacy. So I think about that all the time. And I'm like, this thing that I'm struggling with, let it not be the same case for my descendants. So imposter syndrome, for example, let me be the last one to have to deal with imposter syndrome, and let me do my part in changing and shaping the narrative so that when my great grandkids are in corporate America or wherever they happen to be, it's not like that for them, because of the things that I'm enduring and the things that I'm encountering. So, like I said, I feel very humble, and it's a driving force for me.
And that was one of the driving forces for me, as you mentioned, because looking back, there are things that was even that long ago, like a couple of generations ago, they couldn't do what we're able to do now.
Yeah,
If there was podcasts, if there was networking like this, they probably couldn't even engage in it.
exactly.
Right. So for
Yeah,
me, it was always, I'm blessed and humbled, as you mentioned, to say that I want to make sure that the liberties that are afforded to me because of the
yeah,
sacrifices of the men and women in the past are something
yeah,
that I enjoy. I don't take for granted. That's why
yeah,
at times when I feel like I'm not being as ambitious or as driven as I am, I'm like, wait a minute. There's some people who wanted to accomplish what I want to accomplish when they couldn't even go out at night. So like there were
yeah,
certain things that they were afraid of, right? They're afraid of the police,
yeah,
lynching,
yeah,
murders, things of that
yeah,
nature. So I know for me, not forgetting how life was,
yeah,
and maybe even for you, because you mentioned that you're an immigrant. I grew up poor, and I don't ever forget the day that there are things, even in a first world country like Canada, that I didn't have. There are
mm,
times where in one of the cities that we lived in Canada, where the water went out and they had to open the fire hydrant. We had to get buckets of water to our homes. And
mm,
this is in Canada, right? This is not, some people would think that's in like a third world country. Not necessarily so. You'd be surprised at what you can see in the
mm,
United States and Canada. But I always envisioned myself being successful because I wanted it so bad.
yeah,
When you're going through your imposter syndrome, did you have a similar train of thought where you're thinking, I am going through this, it is hard, but I know that at the end of the journey, I am going to be exactly where I want to be?
Wow. Well, first, I just want to like, you what you said just touched me about your journey. And I would even go a step further and say that you're doing things that people even now want to do. You have this amazing platform. A lot of people are trying to do that. And so you're even now breaking barriers and doing amazing work. So really, kudos to you for that. Um, yeah, I think, as I mentioned, I'm a person of faith. And so whenever challenges arise, my instinct and my prayer is that, listen, this is temporary. And I know that on the other side is lessons and I will get through this. And so I have had countless, countless challenges. I mean, where do we even start? We don't have time to go through that. But countless challenges that I face in corporate America that sometimes I wasn't able to say in the moment, hey, I know that I'll be okay and I'll get through it, because it was just so difficult. And sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you really can't see, like your eyes are blurry from all the tears and everything that you're shedding. But I can say now, looking back, that all of the things that I have gone through have brought me to the place that I am in now. And even when I didn't realize it then, it was all part of the journey and part of, the story. And this is why I said that using your voice is important, because only you can talk about the things that you went through. And that's your story. And the lessons that you went through are unique to you, right? And the way in which you experience life, even the story that you just shared now about growing up. We need to hear that. We need to hear that story. And look at you now and what you're doing, right? It's like, if you didn't tell that story, we wouldn't have and I'm sure I know there's a lot more to your story, but what I'm saying is, without you sharing that, it's hard for us to even fathom or envision, like, okay, so what is this behind the shades? Like, what does that mean? What is that all about? Right. But once we know your story, we can appreciate it more. And I can take things away from myself, and we all can do that. And so I think that's kind of how I view it, because you're not always able in the moment to be like, yeah, I'm going to be fine. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's easier in retrospect. But I know what drives me and what I'm trying to achieve in life. And I am driven not by material things, but like I said, legacy is a big thing for me. I'm driven by really ensuring that I fulfill my purpose on this earth. So that's what keeps me going, as well. Even when the moments are tough, it's like, okay, I've got to keep going. I've got to keep going.
Something that I like to ask everyone is, because I don't think we get asked it often enough, is, are you happy where you are?
Ooh. Ooh, say that again. Say that again.
Are you happy where you are? That's
Ooh,
something many of us don't get asked often enough.
that is a deep question. Okay, here's how I'm gonna say it. I'm a lawyer, I have to dance around it. I am happy where I am because I am blessed. I really am. And I am appreciative of everything that I have in my life. And I'm so grateful, but I'm not content. I want more. I want more for myself. I want to be a better person. I want to be a better mother, a better wife, a better just human, right? And so I'm happy because, listen, I've got health. My family is healthy. We have a roof over our heads and food to eat. And I'm here talking with you. So I'm happy, but this is not it. I have a hunger and desire for more. And that doesn't take away my gratitude or anything like that. It just means that there's more that I want for myself.
So when you touched on legacy, because I'm going to ask, what type of legacy do you want to leave with the world, and why?
Yeah. I hope that the legacy I leave is that I gave everything I had to trying to make people live their best lives. So I really want to be impactful in using my words, using my talents to make people live life a little bit better in a number of different ways. I have lots of different ideas and thoughts around that. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. And for my family, for my children, I want them to know that they are enough, more than enough, and that literally the sky is not the limit. And I want to set a path for them to achieve whatever it is on their heart to achieve.